And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another week, another edition of the PondCast, your weekly dose of all things StarCraft. I'm, of course, VIP. With you, I'm joined by these amazing people in the chat, and of course, by Kuro handling the production side of things as well. Welcome, one and all. Up front, I do want to apologize for this morning's broadcast. For those that are unaware, we were covering the Pixar Cup this morning, and the internet did go down, so we weren't able to finish the cast. A little bit unfortunate, but we will be able to catch up with via replays when it comes to the rest of Pixar Cup. And of course, we'll be going over the results later on in the episode. For those that are curious, we do go through all the tournament results, all the weekly tournament results here throughout the course of the show, but also all the news and content that was released in StarCraft as well. First things first, this did happen last week. We do have the EWC Amazon Prime video documentary series now out, available for free on YouTube. For those that are unaware, this was released a couple of months ago, near the start of the year. It does cover the road and the story of some of the big teams at EWC from 2024. So this is for last year's event, not this year's event. And it was originally released on Amazon Prime, but has been released for free on YouTube many months after the fact. So it is all on YouTube. It is a 5-episode series, so not too long, and each episode is around 40 minutes long. What I will say going over it, and of course we had to discuss this because, I mean, hey, who won EWC 2024 for StarCraft 2? Clem. And it was a pretty big deal as well, right? Like Clem, he was a champion, he was a new world champion. He did provide a lot of points for Team Liquid at the time, which should elevate Team Liquid to second place in the overall EWC standings. But we had a really interesting perspective and a really interesting style for this documentary series. I did of course catch up with it to discuss it here. But the documentary series really does emphasize the teams more than anything. When I say teams, I should actually clarify that it emphasizes the teams, it emphasizes the team owners more than anything. So it's a really interesting perspective. It does put a limelight on the team owner of Team Liquid, team owner of Team Vitality, Team Falcons as well. Like, it has a lot of emphasis on that side of things, and the narrative is kind of fueled from that perspective instead, which I wasn't really expecting. That. So, for example, it establishes the team owners of Team Liquid, and it goes through their day-to-day, it goes through them contacting their teams. It actually goes through how they constructed their teams as well, referring to their League of Legends roster, referring to their Mobile Bang Bang roster, their Formula Sim rosters, and players and pickups and all the like. The first episode did mainly focus on League of Legends and on Mobile Bang Bang, and I will say that it was a pretty compelling story. They were able to, when it comes to League of Legends, of course, they emphasized a lot when it came to their rivalry between themselves and T1 and SKT1. And it goes into their match. They're pretty in depth. Like it spends a lot of time establishing what League of Legends is, establishing the teams themselves, the history. Apparently the ace player on Team Liquid used to be on T1, used to be teammates with Faker, so there was like a rivalry there going on. It goes in depth into their games and everything that's going on between the two of them. A lot of the upbringing and the beginning of Team Liquid and how they run things, their Zoom calls. They even addressed something that I wasn't sure if they would, but if you remember, there was a lot of controversy at the time about Team Liquid being a part of EWC, because originally they had spoken up about how, you know, they have a lot of values in regards to, you know, a lot of other societal things that don't really align with Saudi Arabia. And they got a lot of flack for joining EWC despite the values that they seem to bring up, and they actually addressed that a little bit. There was like a little section where they spoke about how, like, their way of speaking up was adding like the pride logo and the pride flag to their jersey and trying to emphasize that, talking about how one of the owners of Team Liquid is a homosexual, and how it was like a little bit of a hurdle for him to go over as well when it comes to being a part of EWC, considering how closely tied it is with Saudi and you know how they do things in their own country and in their own culture. So they addressed that I'm surprised they addressed it at all, to be honest. But they did address it a little bit. It was definitely there was definitely a small portion of the first episode that was dedicated to that, which I did find interesting, to say the least. So I say first episode, that was the second episode. But they focus a lot on their teams. They focus a lot on League of Legends in that episode. They did go into Mobile Bang Bang as well. I would say that they had a really compelling kind of story with that. Specifically, for those who are unaware, Mobile Bang Bang is like League of Legends on mobile phones, and it's really big in Southeast Asia. And if you know anything about Southeast Asia, you know that a lot of the countries there are actually quite poor. And it goes into like the roster, the Team Liquid roster based in the Philippines, how they're not very well off, and how and it goes into the ace player of their team and how his father is suffering from cancer. Sorry, not suffering from cancer, suffering from a heart attack and has some disabilities as a result of that, and how the player himself, he's like providing for his family, and how it means a lot to him to win the event for his family and provide for that. So I would say it was a really compelling story and a really compelling angle from that side of things. They came second place. They did not come first, by the way. A bit of a spoiler when it comes to how the story concludes. But I'm just trying to like at least set up, how these episodes were constructed and the teams that they follow, the players that they follow. Again, they do often do it from the angle and the perspective of the team owners as well. Looking at the players from their perspective, they spoke about how they did acquire teams to compete in EWC, which was also a bit of a controversial factor. We saw that with Team Vitality. They acquired Onside, right? They acquired Onside Gaming so that they would have a StarCraft 2 roster. Same thing for other games as well, where big teams like Team Falcons, Team Vitality, Team Liquid, they would often acquire other smaller teams that had competitive rosters in very niche esports to be able to compete and have them for EWC. Didn't really touch too much on like the morality or what that really means, but like of that action, but they went into that quite a bit. How a lot of teams were acquired to bolster kind of like the main head team, I should say. But something that was really disappointing, coming back to why we covered it to begin with, which was StarCraft, is they touched on it at the very end. Now, at the very end, the final episode. The final episode is when they touch on StarCraft, and because they emphasize the teams a lot, and they emphasize the importance of like the fact that if you remember, all the esports teams that were competing in all these esports, that were acquiring points to be the best team at EWC, and there was a big gap between Team Falcons and Team Liquid. Team Falcons and every other team for the first season, for the first year. And because of that, they put a lot of emphasis on that fact and on the competition between the teams and how important it was for certain esports to place well and to place highly. I think something that I found really odd when they were focusing on the StarCraft side of things is that they actually put a lot of emphasis on Maru's series against Cure, because Team Vitality, I mean, they had Maru, right? They had Maru in StarCraft, and it shows like the owner of Team Vitality and how they were saying how they expected to do well and expected to place highly, and there was like a lot riding on Maru. And when Maru went down, it actually like pans over to Team Falcons, like the Team Falcons team owner, and how happy they are because technically there was a chance, like mathematically, that Team Vitality would overtake Team Falcons if Maru were to win, like if he were to go through and win everything. So like there was a lot of emphasis on that, which I found really interesting, because it's again a very different perspective from how we experience EWC. But there was like a lot of like it was like you'd see like Maru lose. I think he lost to Cure, and then it kind of cut to the crowd, and like all the Team Falcons fans were going crazy because like, yeah, they were like, yeah, I mean that means that we can't lose. So there was like a lot of emphasis on that, a lot of emphasis on the disappointment of Team Vitality, of Maru doing poorly and arguably underperforming, and you can definitely make an argument for that, especially in 2024. I would say that there was a lot more anticipation around Maru last year than this year, for example. So it was a lot of emphasis on that, which I felt was a little bit weird. And when they cut to StarCraft 2, the StarCraft 2 portion, and unironically, I timed it a little bit there. I think they gave StarCraft 2 like 5 minutes. It was very short. It was a very, very short section of the episode. Even though I would say that it was really big for Team Liquid, but I think that the reason why they gave it so little time is because StarCraft was one of the later esports to finish, and by then, Team Falcons had already won. Like, sorry, I should also mention, the reason why they put a lot of emphasis on the Maru series is because when Maru lost, it was confirmed that Team Falcons could not come second, and then they had like a big celebration, and then it was like Team Falcons, they win, like they win, like they won the whole like EWC, like they are coming out in first place, and they like celebrated that, and that kind of like took away from the StarCraft II finals because then it was like a battle for second place, and there was a lot less notoriety there because I mean, Clem winning the StarCraft II tournament did mean that Team Liquid did come second and they surpassed the other teams, but like again, there was very little time dedicated to that. They went into a little bit of Clem's backstory, a little bit. I'm a little bit shocked that they didn't go further into it. Like it's a pretty big deal for Clem to have overtaken Cyril at the time. Like Cyril, he was the GOAT, right? He was the best player in the game. Everyone was expecting him to win the tournament, and for Clem to win the finals as decidedly as he did was pretty huge. And not just that, but also he's a very young player. He's one of like the next generation of pro gamers as well. He has a very wholesome story behind him when it comes to his father, of course, taking him to StarCraft and how young he was. And again, they did give a little bit of time to that. They showed a couple of clips of Clem being really young, and to emphasize like how much importance they portray this from the side of like the team owner side of things. I think they wrap that up with the owner of Team Liquid calling Clem. They call him up like on a Discord call, and they congratulate him, and that's how like they end like that segment is like congratulating Clem via Discord, because he wasn't even at the event, which which was a little bit weird. But he was at, fun fact, he was at the event for the League of Legends event. He was not at the event for the StarCraft tournaments, which is interesting. They did try to emphasize how like, oh, Team Liquid, they began from StarCraft, from Brood War. The owner Victor, he used to compete in Brood War as well. Like that's where their origins lie, and that's why this is important. But they go over it real quick. Like they do not give Clem and StarCraft much time at all. Again, like in the 40-minute episode, it's like 5 minutes is dedicated to Clem, which is really disappointing. Obviously from a StarCraft fan perspective, and from our side of things, but I feel like there should have been a little bit more importance placed on that. But again, because by that point in the tournament, Team Falcons had already won, at least from their perspective, it didn't really mean as much, unfortunately. Like because of the way that they had directed and portrayed the show, and what the show was meant to be, and how the amount of importance they placed on the overall team standings, like StarCraft just didn't mean as much, right? It just didn't mean as much to them, so they didn't really have as much importance placed on it themselves. I should say that like it was 5 minutes, like the Clem finals portion was 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure they spend more time on the Mario versus Cure series, actually, like in the docu series. Like they spend a lot more time and a lot more emphasis on that, showcasing that because that was the moment the Team Falcons won. Right, like that was the moment the Team Falcons secured their victory at EWC, with Team Vitality not advancing through. So yeah, it was a really weird way to portray things, but I mean that is how EWC is constructed, right? Like they put a lot more weight behind the teams and how important it is that they do well for themselves. The series even ends. I'm pretty sure it ends with the owner of Team Falcons and Team Vitality as well. Like they cut to Team Vitality, and the team owner, he's like, oh, we underperformed in games where we thought we were going to do well, and we overperformed in the other games, and we're going to have to reevaluate things coming into next year. They cut to like the Na'Vi team owner, they cut to like the Team Liquid team owner, and I think the series ends with the Team Falcons team owner, like, again, talking about like, how they want to excel and do better in future years. But yeah, it was not what I was expecting. it was definitely something I was not really expecting. It was interesting to see that perspective, because it's something you don't often get portrayed. But at the same time, it also kind of takes away from the esports themselves. It takes away from the players themselves as well. And it portrays things in a very kind of different light. And I don't know if it's for the best. As I mentioned before, there was definitely some touching moments, like the Mobile Bang Bang team. I think they did a really good job there, showing like how much it means to them and their struggle and all that stuff. Like they went into like a proper like character perspective there, 100%. But in other aspects, they really didn't. So yeah, it was interesting, and it's there. It's free. It's free on YouTube. It's free on the Prime Video YouTube channel. All 5 episodes are there. I only watched episode 2 and episode 5 just because that's where you focus on Team Liquid and StarCraft somewhat. But all 5 episodes are available. Again, 40 minutes each. Doesn't take too long to get through, and yeah, it definitely was an interesting kind of sight, an interesting perspective, and yeah, again, I'm a little bit disappointed just because of how little they really focus on StarCraft and how little they seem to give too much attention to it. But I also understand that like the reality is that other esports are bigger, right? Other esports are in a way more important in their eyes as well. I think what was disappointing to me was not just how little time they gave the documentary series, but because of the perspective that they gave, how little attention Clem got from his team. Like, I mean, as I kind of mentioned, it is kind of sad that like the team owners were there to cheer for and to be behind their League of Legends team, and even their Mobile Bang Bang team as well, that much more. But they weren't there for for Clem. Like obviously, like they still cared enough to call him and stuff like that, but like it's a little bit upsetting. Like especially if after the fact they're like, oh, StarCraft means a lot to us. That's how we started, right? Like one of the owners used to compete in StarCraft. It's like, okay, are you gonna be there for your player? Are you gonna are you gonna be there for StarCraft, right? Like what's going on? So yeah, it's a little bit upsetting. But it does go, I guess, a little bit more in depth as to the inner workings of Team Liquid if you're interested in that sort of thing, and yeah, I'm curious to see if they do another one of these for this year, for 2025. I'm sure they will. There's a lot of money behind all of this, so there's a high chance that they will kind of take that step. But we'll see. We shall see. Oh, meanwhile, big shout out to Luis CGG. Thank you so much, bro. Thanks so much. They didn't do much for StarCraft II, but Clem is front and center on the poster because he's so cute. Fair. Yeah, that's also what was surprising to me. Clem is on the thumbnail of that episode, by the way. He's on the thumbnail of episode 5, and they barely really give him any limelight. So yeah, it's disappointing, I think is what I will say. It is disappointing. But with that, again, all 5 episodes are available. If you're curious yourself, I do recommend checking it out. Again, episode 5 is the quote-unquote StarCraft episode. I say StarCraft episode, I mentioned how little time they spend on it. They actually spend the majority of the time on F1, on Formula 1, and the Formula 1 sim game. Apparently, something I didn't know is that like one of the best like Formula 1 racers actually also in his free time competes in the sim version as well, which is interesting. So they focus a lot on that, probably because like the person himself is very notorious himself and very famous himself. So they spend a lot of time on F1, and then towards the end they go into StarCraft, and then they wrap up like EWC. So again, episode 5 is the episode to go to if you're interested in that. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see if they release another season, another 2025 edition of the EWC docu-series, and we'll see if they continue to go for. They probably will continue to go for the team perspective side of things. It did catch me off guard. That's kind of like the route that they were going for, but it makes sense with kind of what they want to achieve and what their goals are. Just maybe not something that I'm as interested in, or that like the people are as interested in. But yeah, with that, GG, well played. That leads us into our next bit of news here. That leads us into the This Is Why I Play SE for All video by Artosis. So for those that remember, it was 2 weeks ago at this point, but Artosis did compete in a LAN event in Philadelphia. We casted the event ourselves. It was called SE for All. It featured StarCraft II, Brood War, and StarCraft 64, so it was a very exciting event. And Artosis did actually go in and did actually make his own video from his perspective, kind of. I was a little bit surprised. I was expecting, if you remember, I was actually really happy with the SE Historian. He made a video, he made like a little mini docu video about a LAN earlier this year, right? It was earlier this year, also in America, and it probably gave him some inspiration to host his own tournament. Do you remember what it was called? It was For the Love of the Game, that's why. It was For the Love of the Game. It was a LAN event in Montreal that the SC historian made like a little mini impromptu video on. If you remember, he said himself that he'd never planned on, but like because he was there, because he was interviewing a bunch of people, and because the event was so much fun, like he decided to make like a video on it. And I thought that Artosis was gonna do. I thought this was gonna be something similar. It isn't. It's a little bit more like a vlog slash like event wrap up video, like hype video. So it starts and it shows Artosis like packing for the event, going to the event, and then what happened in the games themselves. But if you listen to what I just said, he doesn't really like show off the venue, show off the events, interview any players. Like it is specifically the games he played, and there's no commentary. It's just like punk music going on while like showing the highlights of the games. It's very old school, and that's what it's meant to be. I think Artosis said himself that he was like, I wanted to make like an old school like tribute video. It reminds me a lot of like, if you remember like back in the day, like in 2010, even 2009, like era of YouTube, where you'd have like these like WoW like PvP like videos of like warriors going in and like blade storming and like having like heavy metal playing while like while like you have these highlight clips playing of like World of Warcraft or like a Call of Duty montage or like Halo montage. Like that's kind of the vibe he was going for, basically, is that he has like a little montage clip section of each game, or like the highlight moments, and then like punk music playing at the same time. It's very nostalgic. Like he does capture that vibe 100%. But at the same time, I wanted to hear what he had to say about the venue, about the events. Like he briefly said at the end, like, yeah, hey, like I love the events. Like the reason why I go to these events is to hang out with everyone live and to enjoy StarCraft and to meet other people that enjoy StarCraft as well. But I was hoping to get a little bit more of the player experience of the events, the venue, other people there, like brief little interviews and stuff like that. But that is not what this video is. Not at all. It's more or less like a hype compilation, like clip video of the Brood War games specifically. Not the SC2 stuff, but just the Brood War stuff. And also specifically Artosis' games and then the finals, because he didn't make it to the finals. But I'm just showcasing the Artosis' games in the group stage, then in the playoffs, and then the finals without him. So it's a fun video. Again, as I mentioned, it's very nostalgic. It's very old school. I definitely was smiling watching it because it's like, oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did here, and yeah, it's a very fun video. I'm hoping that the SC historian is gonna come out with his own like actual like behind the scenes or like his actual like wrap up like docu video about SE for All. I'm hoping that that's gonna come out. I don't know if he was filming anything. It's possible he was too busy running the event that he might not. But I hope he found the time to talk to the players and talk to even some of the fans, like some of the viewers, some of the more amateur players that competed at the event. I hope that something was done there. I hope that some content was made, because I feel like that's kind of ripe for content, especially considering what was done previously in the Montreal LAN. I hope that we get to hear or see something for SC for All. Because this is not it. This again, this is just more of like a clip video, and again, it's very fun. I do recommend it, but it's not what I was expecting. Is what I will say. Still a fun clip video though. Still a lot of hype, and again, I hope that the SC historian was able to actually piece something together as well, and I hope that that's in the works. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Nope. As that leads us into our next big piece of news here, the Archon Studio AMA. We were going to be discussing this last week, but it is 2 hours long, and I didn't have the time to actually go through it. And oh boy, again, 2 hours of AMA. It was really good. Like it was really good. Questions were actually asked. Kuro was even one of the people that did ask the question as well. Surprised to see.
No one saw anything. What do you mean?
Kira asked a couple of questions, and there were some very in-depth answers. And this AMA really put some things into perspective, for me at least. For those that are curious, there's a StarCraft II tabletop miniatures war game that's coming out soon. and we've been discussing it. You know, they've been sponsoring RSL, and there were a couple of things that we've discussed here on the channel, talking about how like its comparison to Warhammer and what it means. But I think going through this AMA really put things into perspective for me as to what this game is and what it could be. When it comes to like these big wargaming like miniatures games, obviously Warhammer has a monopoly, 100%. Like they have the monopoly. They have a really big presence just in tabletop gaming in general, and it's very difficult to break into that kind of scene. There are some other options like the Lord of the Rings miniatures game. I want to say that there's some other budget games as well. I know this for a fact that there are some miniatures games that were released that are actually quite similar to Warhammer, but they have their own IP. And the reason why they were even brought up is to just be a more affordable option, because Warhammer is very expensive. It's very expensive. And basically, there's some other miniatures games that were made by people that are like, hey, do you want to play Warhammer, but do you not really have that much money? Here you go. Here's like here's like a budget option if you don't mind. It's like, yeah, like there are people that play that as well. Because it can get really expensive. It can be really expensive to get into miniatures games. I mean, similar to a lot of these games, right? Similar to like card games, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, like Pokemon. Like, it can like really rank up over time. But at the same time, it's also a relatively niche audience. And that's my kind of concern. Now realizing a little bit more of the gravity of what this game is. They were talking a lot about how, like, potentially, we spoke about this last time, they potentially have, you know, content that they can release if they have approval, and more importantly, if they have the funds, and if they make enough money, and if the game is successful, they can keep this going for like 9 years. They're going to be releasing content, releasing models, releasing like maps and add-ons and all this other stuff in like 2-month intervals, if not quarterly intervals every year. And they potentially have content for like 9 years to come. But that's also reliant on their success. And that's kind of what I was thinking about throughout the course of this interview, is how successful can this be? StarCraft is a really big IP. Is this too late? We spoke about this last year. We spoke about this last episode. It was either the last podcast or the podcast before that, where we spoke a lot about the relationship that Blizzard has with its community, and how that's a bridge that was burned and broken quite a number of years ago at this point. Not just in regards to StarCraft, in regards to World of Warcraft, in regards to Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, in regards to just a lot of their games and a lot of the community in general, right? It's like we did, and I do recommend checking out, again, last PondCast. The reasoning why we brought this up was because we were discussing about how, hey, they've been working on repairing that. We were specifically focusing on the Blizzard Cup, right? Like, they announced the Blizzard Cup, they announced basically esports again at BlizzCon, which is something that hasn't been around for a long time. We spoke about how BlizzCon used to be a celebration of all these games and a place where all these Blizzard fans would come together to celebrate those games, and how that's kind of whittled away over time, how they kind of ruined that relationship, and how I would say that right now they're working on bringing it all back together, but they're still working on it, right? They're still working. It feels like Blizzard, they are taking steps to kind of like rebuild that bridge with the community and try to foster that like positive relationship again. We're seeing it with StarCraft. We're seeing it with the latest patches. We're seeing it with the patches that were released with Warcraft 3, right? With Warcraft 3 at the start of the year, with Heroes of the Storm at the end of last year. Like it does feel like with Microsoft acquiring Blizzard, they're working on mending that relationship. Like, that is true, but is like, it feels like they need more time to properly mend that relationship and to have people excited again about this sort of stuff. I will say that there is some excitement, there is some hype around the StarCraft miniatures game, but again, like, there's like, because of the amount of like doomerism around like Blizzard and stuff, like, I don't know how successful this is going to be off the bat. That's my big concern when it comes to the future of this game, because there's so little goodwill with Blizzard. And there's definitely like, if this was released like in 2014, 2015, 2016, like I can see this doing really, really well. And I don't know how well this will succeed in the current kind of like atmosphere, right? In the current kind of like ecosystem of Blizzard and of StarCraft. So I guess we'll see. Another thing that I wanted to discuss, of course, is that is how niche this is and how difficult it's going to be to actually properly facilitate this kind of game. When it comes to tabletop games, I'm sure you have them in your area, but at least here in Australia, there are lots of like venues there's like franchises. Like there's a lot of venues where there's like Friday Night Magic, for example, where there's like Thursday nights like Warhammer, right, where there's like Yu-Gi-Oh on Mondays. Like there's a lot of that, at least here in Australia, right, around New South Wales. Like almost every suburb has its own like gaming shop, gaming store for that sort of thing. I don't know how common that is in other areas of the world, like in other countries, for example. I don't know how accessible it's going to be, but even then, even as I speak about how like, oh, like there's a lot of like gaming shops and gaming stores that allow for this sort of thing, even then, there are some gaming shops that, I mean, Magic is very mainstream. Like everyone has Magic, but like for Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, even though Yu-Gi-Oh is probably the second biggest TCG, it's like maybe every other store or maybe every other store has it, just because there's not as much of a local player base for that sort of thing. And it goes even more so for something like a miniatures game, right, where you need to have people in your local area that also happen to be collecting and getting into this to be able to foster like a local scene, right? A local scene of StarCraft miniatures, for example, to be able to play the game is what I'm getting at. Like, there's going to be a section of people that just want to collect, for sure, right? Like to collect, to paint, just have these models. When it comes to playing, though, like it's the reason why I spoke earlier about like about the size of like the player base that this game is going to have available, and spoke a little bit about the relationship that they have with their community. Without that core player base, it is going to be difficult to really get this off the ground, because miniatures games are so niche as well, and because of the price point, and which we haven't been revealed yet. We don't really know what the price point is going to be, but yeah, it's going to be difficult to break into the overall like wargaming scene. I don't want to say it's impossible, and I hope it does well, but like that's what I was thinking about the entire time. I was I was like how many people locally are gonna be playing this, and like how likely am I even gonna be able to play this if I do decide to get into it, like personally, for example, if I decide to like invest into like creating an army and stuff, like can this really kick off the ground? I hope it does. And it just shows the gravity of how ambitious this is, right? It does feel like a very ambitious project. I do think that the developers behind the game have really good intentions. I do think that they're very passionate about the game, but again, it comes down to how well is this going to sell and how many people are going to be getting involved in this game as well, to be able to actually find a game, because like this is even different to like, I don't know, even when it comes to like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic. Technically online games exist. They're very difficult to get into, but like there are people that get on Discord, they set up their cams, they face them down to the table, and they get into calls with other people, and they have games online. Like they it's very finicky, and obviously it's hard to like make sure no one's cheating, to like hide like cards under the table and stuff to make sure that everything's like above board. But like that does exist as well. But like the idea of trying to do that with like what I'm getting is that like even for card games, it is technically possible to play online, and some people do that. For something like a miniatures game, no, sure, like it has to be offline, like it has to be like in person, and yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to kind of break into that sort of scene. I think I'm gonna try. Like I think I'm gonna get into it. Like I do have some friends that are very heavily into Warhammer. Like they've got like, and I'm gonna reach out and be like, yo, there's a StarCraft miniatures game coming out. You guys want to step in? And I'm sure we'll be able to like get some games going. I think I'm gonna do my best to try to get that going in my own local region, my own local store, to like get that going. But I feel like, yeah, it's to do that everywhere. It's definitely gonna be it's ambitious. It's definitely going to be a challenge, I should say. It's going to be a challenge. The other thing that I was thinking about the entire time, and we'll get into some of the more specifics of the AMA, but very quickly, they spoke about how they plan on releasing new models, new units, new maps, new everything, on at least for now, on a 2-month schedule, which means every 2 months they're going to be releasing some new units. Very quickly, what the base set is for the beginner set, for the initial release, for Terran, they're going to have Marines, Marauders, and Medics, right? That's what Terran has. For Zerg, they're going to have Lings, Roaches, and Queens. And for Protoss, it's going to be Stalker, I think it's Stalker, Zealot, Sentry. This is aside from the hero unit, of course. But as you heard me, like there are only, I believe, going to be 3 to 4 units at base release. And the thing that concerns me is that, which is fine, but because this game is just now releasing, and because the amount of units are limited, if you want to properly play a game of the tabletop miniatures game, it's going to be a little bit awkward. What I mean by that is that the way that they have it set up is that you can have like lower quote unquote supply games. And if you're unfamiliar with miniatures games and war games, there's usually like a cap of points, or there's like a supply cap, right? With how many units you can actually play in a game of Warhammer, for example. So there's a cap, right? So there's a quote unquote supply cap of 200 for this game. They don't use supply cap; they have their own verbiage, but this is just to make things a little bit easier to simpler. There's like a 200 supply cap, but because the initial release, they're only going to have a very few amount of units. If you want to play this game at launch, and if you want to play it with your friends, and if you want to play a proper 200 supply game, you're going to have to buy a bunch of base units, and then very quickly, they're going to become obsolete. Like, that's what I was concerned by. I was like, ooh, so if you want to play like a proper game of this with 200 supply, you're going to have to buy like a bunch of lings, a bunch of roaches, a bunch of queens, like a bunch of these base units. And the problem with that is that, okay, so you're going to have like 200 supply worth of these units to play with. And then in 2 months, they release the Hydra. And then 2 more months, they release the Viper. And it's like, and obviously, you can't use everything. You have to remove some supply there because you're maxed to add these new units that are being released, and then you're kind of like stuck with like a bunch of like obsolete units that don't really do anything. So it's like, so it feels like trying to play this on release, you're gonna be punished if you want to play at 200 supply, right? If you want to play with maxed out armies, you will be punished like monetarily quite hard. That's like another thing that you have to consider when it comes to getting into this, like especially early on. It feels like the best way to get into this game is probably a year in. Like, wait a year, wait for all these units to be released, and then you can play with like a proper army. But that also hurts them because I'm sure they want like a lot of people to get into the game early and invest into the game early and actually start. So like I would suggest, as someone who's maybe interested in getting into this game, is to buy just to collect, just to have like some lings, just to have some roaches and stuff, just to paint them, just to have them, and not go overboard and just wait for the rest of these units to be released before actually looking to formulate like a proper army. But it is a shame because it does mean that you technically, I mean, you can, but you're going to be punished if you do try to play like proper full-size games of this, like in the first year of play, because there's going to be so many more releases and so many more units released over the course of that year that you're going to want to use them most likely, right? And it's not going to be like a balance thing where like, oh, you're stuck with like all these roaches and then they release like the lurker and then like these roaches are useless. Like from my understanding, like there's going to be balance and there's going to be, ways to use these units even like 2 years in, but like you're not going to want like 200 supply of roaches, right? Like, or maybe you would, I don't know. Like there's a lot of strategy that comes involved here. Talking about the game itself, like there's going to be a bunch of upgrades. Something to keep old units relevant is that apparently you're going to have like a hero unit. And that hero unit has a bunch of passives that affects your army. So imagine like you use like Zagara, and Zagara has like a hero passive that like gives bonuses to like roaches, for example. Or in like 6 months' time, they release Kerrigan, and Kerrigan has a bunch of bonuses for like hydras. So depending on your hero, you can construct your army in a different way, right? Like maybe with one hero you want to be more hydra heavy, maybe with another hero it like gives burrow base to all your units, and you can go for like a heavy roach style, a heavy like burrow roach style or something with Zagara. Or maybe Abathur comes out and Abathur has a bunch of bonuses to ultras, and you can have like an ultra based army with Abathur. Like that's kind of like, because of that, there's going to be new heroes. You can create and construct different kind of armies, and that's like a really interesting kind of like factor there, is depending on which hero unit you use, it's going to heavily influence like the kind of army that you want to be making with that hero unit, which means you're going to be incentivized to maybe make multiple different armies depending on how you want to play the game, right? especially obviously this is more monetarily on the monetary side of things, but like technically I don't know if you have like a Hydra Lurker like Ling heavy composition like with Kerrigan, then they release like Abathur or they release like the Overmind later on down the line, and it uses a completely different kind of like army, but you want to use it, well then you gotta invest, you gotta buy that separate army and then use that instead. So yeah, it's really interesting how they're deciding to do things. It's really exciting. Like the game itself looks really cool. They spoke a lot about how they balance things, how a lot of these like miniatures games or tabletop games, especially some that are based off of different IPs, they kind of balance or create units based off of vibes, based off of feeling, based off of how it works, like lore wise, or how or the in-game feeling that they want to provide. But here, like they're very numbers based, and they want to make sure that everything works with each other and nothing is too like too overpowered or underpowered, and they're a lot more clinical with that sort of thing, which I think is going to benefit them in the long run, and they're very proud of that. They even glowed a little bit about how like other companies don't really do that, but we want to make sure that like everything works well and everything is balanced, and as a consumer not really punished for doing for investing too much into something that is still going to be viable in its own way. Gonna be hard to balance with regular new content. I think it'll be fine. From my understanding, they already have all the stats and all like the number side of things down for like upcoming units. Like that's already like locked in. It's just releasing them, creating them, like the design, the resin, like the artistic like design, all that stuff. All that stuff is kind of what they have to work on for later releases. But from my understanding, like numbers wise, that's already locked in. Like they already, for the most part, like have things like where they want to be. So like I don't think like balance wise, you're gonna have to be too concerned when it comes to future releases. There are other things that are making them stagger releases. And from my understanding as well, they're considering instead of doing it every 2 months, like quarterly, like 4 times a year. Like 4 times a year, like they'll release like a batch of units for each race, of course, for Protoss, for Terran, for Zerg. So they already thought of that ahead of time. Budget option for Warhammer's use printed miniatures. Yeah. There's some people that just like 3D print their miniatures, things like that. And you can just play with like your local like friends. You don't have to like compete and play in tournaments with that sort of stuff. My friends got me into Warhammer 40k in school. Then I started winning too much and we stopped playing. Oh no, oh no. Should have expected StarCraft needs to already have the numbers down. I mean, the way that they said it sounds like this is something that they're passionate about, that they want to do themselves, is to make sure like that everything's as it should be. When it comes to the terrain, when it comes to the maps, I mean that's also going to be a big factor, right? They speak a lot in detail as to how the terrain works. There is no cover mechanic, but there is like sight, like line of sight is a thing. So there are going to be obstacles, whether it's like walls or bunkers or even steam vents or something that does have line of sight, that does impact like your accuracy on how well you're going to connect with the opposing units. So that's going to be a thing, of course. Like measuring, of course. Like if you know anything about miniatures games, like you're gonna have to have your ruler. You're gonna have your tape measure. You're gonna measure like the radius of like a grenade going off, or the radius of like a tank shot, and how much that hits. Like the radius, like the line of sight of your units compared to your opponent's units. They go very much into detail as to how the terrain is going to impact things, as to how obstacles work, as to how supply works, as to how upgrades work. You do measure from the base of the units, the base that's like underneath the unit model. That's where you measure from. When you spawn in units, there are going to be other mechanics, like dropship mechanics or Nidus worms or pylon warpins as well. So you can technically spawn in units in different areas of the map that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. There's a card system, so you have your cards and they allow you to do these things. You can have like a dropship card, you can have like a Nidus worm card to reinforce and spawn in units into other areas. I believe there's a way to rush as well. Like there's a way to like enhance your supply early. The way that it works is that your supply increases as turns go on. So as you have more supply, you can spawn in more units, right? Like you have like a base set of like reserved army that you spawn in each round. Technically, you can get supply blocked. That's also a thing. You technically can get supply blocked in this game. That's another thing you have to consider. There's no like base mechanic. There's no like mineral or gas income mechanic. None of that. That's not a part of this. But of course, you are limited with how much you can spawn in based on the supply that you have. Likewise, depending on your cards, again, you can upgrade units. You can give them Burrow. You can give them Cloak, for example. Detection is going to be required to deal with that. They're using Cloak and Burrow in a different way, where you can still attack Cloak units, but at a disadvantage if you don't have a scan, right? Unlike in StarCraft 2, where a DT can go in and just kill everything if you have no scan. Here, you still have a way to attack like a Dark Templar, even if you have no detection.
I believe
like things of that nature.
specifically it's based on proximity. I think that when they insert in proximity, they just assume that like you can detect them because they're so close.
Yeah. There's like things of that nature that do change things when it comes to like undetectable units, for example, and that's going to be a factor in this game as well, which is going to be interesting. Yeah, there's a lot. Again, it's very in depth. They do not hold back. Like they actually go quite in depth when it comes to that. When it comes to like speed of units, something that I did find interesting is obviously you spawn in squads of units, but as the squad gets smaller, they do get their own benefits as well, just to like balance some things out. What I mean by that is speed. Is like the speed of units does change. The reasoning and the rationale for this is that when you spawn in like a squad of 4 Hydras, you have your quote unquote like base leader Hydra, and then you can spawn in units around it, which technically means you can be closer to your opponents because you can spawn in units in front of that base Hydra to get closer to them. But as you lose Hydras, then you can't really do that. So like that's why they have increased movement, increased speed. Apparently, and we didn't get to see like a practice game. They alluded to their internal testing, but apparently, as opposed to regular tabletop miniatures games and war games, apparently StarCraft is going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more mobility. There's going to be a lot more mobility, and your ability for your units to actually traverse and go across the map and capture objectives and fight for objectives is going to be higher. So it's going to be a little bit higher paced. They also did mention how they're going to be simplifying the dice a little bit. If you know anything about Warhammer, and there are some people that do play Warhammer in the chat, there can be a lot of dice in Warhammer. Like, like unironically, you got like a bucket of dice, and you roll the dice at the start of the turn, and you got all this stuff like resolving and things like that. Like a lot of dice can get involved in Warhammer. It sounds like they do want to simplify that a little bit and take away some of those dice. There's still going to be a decent chunk of dice that you're going to be rolling, but less so compared to Warhammer. Like that's something that they want to try to like simplify a little bit. That can be a little bit overwhelming. Obviously, like pre-gaming and setting up as well, they're trying to like limit that as well, make it a little bit more accessible, which is a little bit exciting for me, for sure. Which is exciting for me, of course, as well. I know that there can be like a high barrier for entry when it comes to learning the game and getting into something like Warhammer. Sounds like this is going to be maybe a little bit more intuitive, especially if you are more familiar with StarCraft. So they're going to be changing up how that works, how the dice work, for example. As we mentioned before, again, there are going to be hero units with their own passive skills. There's going to be cards as well that you do draw that give you abilities that you can utilize, that you can use with how the turns kind of transpire, and that kind of like back and forth. And when it comes to length of games, this is something that I should mention. The average length of a 200 supply game of a maxed out army game is going to be around 2 hours. Around 2 hours is going to be like a full length game of this, so it's going to be quite a bit of time. But you can limit yourselves, and you can play with like 100 supply or like 150 supply, and that's going to be around like an hour and a half, like that kind of length game, which from my understanding is a little bit more standard. Like from my understanding, like Warhammer games, they typically last around that long as well, around that length. So depending on how much supply, you can limit yourselves. You can play with more, play with less. That'll also change things. There are different win conditions. From my understanding, there's going to be a lot of objectives out on the map. A lot of objectives to kind of like fight for and to contest to give yourself points. You can also win via elimination by destroying your opponent's units and eliminating them, of course. You do have a finite amount of supply to work with. Bear that in mind. You don't like have, it's not like when a unit dies, you can respawn it. From my understanding, when it's dead, it's dead. So that also limits some things as well. 32 melee guns charging, 96 dice to hit. Yeah, like again, like Warhammer can be very dice heavy for sure. Aye. Recommend watching the vid itself. Yes. You can watch the vid itself. Obviously, everything is subject to change. When it comes to the specific dates of things, they did mention that pre-order is going to be available January, and the official rules will be finalized January as well. So January, that's in just over a month. Like it's like around 2 months. Like around 2 months time is when we expect the finalized rules and pre-orders to be available, to be able to get into launch and get into the actual game itself coming into 2026. So they already have their schedule. Again, they didn't really get into too much detail when it comes to pricing yet. That's going to be a big thing, right? Comparing how accessible, how affordable is this compared to Warhammer. It should be cheaper, 100%. Like Warhammer is insanely expensive. So it should be cheaper, it should be more accessible, that I guarantee, but how accessible, we'll see. Once again, when it comes to the base set they're going to be releasing is TVZ, Terran and Zerg. So you're going to get like a squad of Marines. It's going to be 2 squads of Marines, 2 squads of Marauders, and a medic for Terran. It's going to be a Queen, squad of Zerglings, squad of Roaches for Zerg. And that's going to be the base set is Terran and Zerg. Protoss is going to be sold separately, but Protoss is also going to be available at release. So that's maybe a bit of a misconception. Is like, so like the base like beginner starter set is only Terran and Zerg. From my understanding, Protoss will be released at the same time, but separately. And that's going to be Zealots, Stalkers, and Sentries. So those are the 3 units. So it's going to be, again, Lings, Roaches, and Queens for Zerg, Marine, Marauder, Medic for Terran, and Zealot, Stalker, Sentry for Protoss. And those are like the base units that are going to be available alongside the hero units like Zeratul, right? Like Zeratul was already released, like pre-order, like the collection version of him. Obviously they're going to be releasing a base version of Zeratul as well, like a vanilla version. You can still use the special version, the pre-order version that they already released. That can be used in his place. There's going to be like a base version available of him as well. And that's all going to be available on release. And again, as I mentioned, like more units will be released over time. Personally, just because of how their release schedule set up, I'm probably just going to be like for collection purposes, getting like the base set and then just chilling with that. And then I'll get whatever unit gets released later, and then whatever gets released later, and then slowly constructing an army. Again, like if money isn't an issue, then just go crazy for sure. But I do think it's wise to like wait a little bit, wait for other units to be released before you construct your army and actually get into playing the game itself, like at a higher level. Just because we don't know what's going to be released. I say that I believe in January they're also going to release their roadmap. They're going to be releasing like, hey, expect Hydras in October, expect like Vipers in December, like expect like I believe they're going to release like a roadmap of like what is coming up throughout the course of the year once they go live and once the game gets released, so you can get a better idea of like what's coming next. I know they were discussing a lot about how they're making their Archons and making their models. Obviously, they're going to be people that are just interested in collecting for sure. Like that's I guarantee that's going to be a big part of the consumer base as well, is just collecting, of course, just painting figures as well, which is going to be exciting. Like I have not painted a figure in a long time.
I want to paint some Zerglings, but I saw how much it takes to paint the Zeratul, and now I'm scared.
Oh yeah, it can be really, really intense and really in depth, like when it comes to how you want to make it yourself. Obviously, you can make it yourself. You can make it look however you want, right? With whatever color scheme, with whatever look you want. I think that's why, like for example, Marines, like Warhammer Space Marines, are so popular, is because there are so many different factions and so many different color schemes, like Blood Angels or like whatever like color scheme you want, like with blue or with red, with orange, with yellow. It's like you can paint it however you want. I think with Zerglings you're a little bit more limited, but even then, like in StarCraft, there are different shades of color schemes of units you can go for, so you can make them how you want. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. I myself, I'm probably, because I'm a Zerg player, I'm probably going to try to construct a Zerg army. But we'll see. It's we'll see what happens, like balance wise and stuff. I've also thought about if I do end up getting my friends involved, something that I don't know if other people have taken it up, but I know that In Control, of course, he used to stream his Warhammer 40k tournament runs, and like they'd be like X night for Warhammer 40k, and then they'd set up like a bunch of cameras and show off them like playing the game and stuff. I wonder if I'll be able to do anything like that. I mean, maybe it again, it depends on how this game kicks, like how it pops off, how popular it gets, how many games we can get as well. But I might try to get involved into that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how enticing. We'll see how enjoyable the game is. I mean, it looks promising. It looks very promising when it comes to the game itself. It's very promising. Just quickly trying to go over what other notes I left. No playable workers, of course. When it comes to buildings, there are no buildings required, but buildings might be released just for terrain purposes, just for like site blockers and stuff like that. I know that pylons are going to be a thing for Protoss, where I think Artanis as a hero unit comes with a pylon, and you can place the pylon, and depending on where you place the pylon, that's going to be basically a reinforcement point, and that's where you can warp in. So you can kind of like place a pylon on the map, which also means you can proxy as well, near like an objective, near like a point that you want to contest, of course. Set up the pylon, and that's where you can warp in. So there are going to be there might, because of that, there might be like a Nidus model. True. Like that, like whenever there's a building model, it's for utility purposes. But by no means you don't need like depots to like not get supply blocked, or you don't need like a command center. You don't need like these buildings to play the game. But if they do release them, most likely it's going to be for terrain purposes, for obstacles, or for some utility for like a hero unit, for example. I say Games Workshop would make more money, have less competition if their pricing was more sensible. Maybe you could I say maybe, because even though their pricing is insane for Games Workshop, the reality is they do have monopoly of the market. Like I would say, like by hands down, they're the biggest like miniatures game out there. So on the one hand, yes, they do. Like they make the game a little bit more inaccessible to other people that can't really afford it, but like their players, like they're like for the most part whales, right? Like it is, if you're actively playing Warhammer, most likely you're dropping a bunch of money into it, and that like offsets that, right? Like that makes it that they earn quite a bit, just because of like once you start getting into like collection or competing, like you're dropping a lot. You're to build up these armies. So I would say that like their player base like makes up for that sort of thing. It works for them. It works for them. But yeah, so like overall, I do recommend it. They go very in depth into a lot of questions. Obviously, as I just mentioned, their rule set is going to be finalized at a later date. So everything that was released here is subject to change. They showed some of the unit cards. Like every unit has its own stats, of course. Every squad has its own stats, and that's going to be available in the box themselves. I think they spoke about shipping. How they do have like a distributor in the US. They have a distributor in Australia. They of course have their own distribution in the UK, for the rest of Europe as well. And for the most part, they should be able to release without too heavy pricing. I think a lot of people were a little bit concerned about shipping, especially with the Zeratul collector figure. Like the Zeratul collector figure, apparently the price of shipping was like as much as the model itself, if not more. But that should be different when it comes to the actual base game itself, just because they have their own warehouses and distributors in Australia, in other areas of the world where they could be releasing. I think they spoke about Korea. I think they have their distribution in Asia. So for the most part, they have places covered. For the most part, there are some areas of the world that could be a little bit more expensive. I think, for example, Latin America. I think they're going to be getting their models from the US, so there's going to be a little bit more travel distance there, a little bit more of a price from getting it from the America, but obviously cheaper than like getting it from overseas, getting it from Europe or something. So for the most part, they're working on their distribution, making sure that everything is like more or less accessible, of course. They spoke about how they've been getting like really good relationship with Blizzard when it comes to Blizzard allowing them to do what they want. So they've had like very little pushback. Obviously, they've had conversations, they've had input, of course, but for the most part, they've been able to like do things how they've been able to maintain freedom and control of their game, of their miniatures game, and again, they're very passionate about it. Very passionate. And yeah, no, curious. Is there anything else you wanted to add? I know that you also listen to the AMA.
I can add that my question did get answered, and they will be working with content creators later on, but there's nothing revealed yet. I think what they said was that they have like, I think the meeting that they were supposed to be with Blizzard was either already happened, was supposed to be happening around this time. So like this is like the last phase of approval they still have to do, and then they have to just, you know, get everything ready, and they will be pretty much ready for production. Oh, something they did say, for those interested, they did say that all the miniatures will be available on their websites first, and then they will be available in like local stores. So if you want to get on it as soon as possible, then you should go directly to their website.
Okay. Something else that I think I very quickly wanted to mention as well. I think I already forgot it at this point. But yeah, really exciting to see the miniatures game coming out. Again, like as I mentioned before, like my big concern for it is just going to be its player base, is going to be breaking into the miniature scene. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy. I do think that StarCraft is a big enough IP to kind of like get eyes and bring attention to it. Whether or not it's able to, you know, be successful enough. All right, that's what I wanted to mention. Be successful to the point where they can keep this game running for an extended period of time. Like I hope they are able to. They spoke about how they do have plans in the future, if it gets to that point, to start releasing units that are not in the base game of StarCraft, that are not in the games of StarCraft 2 and Brood War, but in the books, or even like quote unquote like hero units like Hunter Killers, which are like upgraded versions of Hydras, or they had like the Ultra Hero units or upgraded versions of Zerglings as well, that were in Brood War, to release those, or to release like hybrid units as well, that will most likely be further down the line, a couple of years down the line. I think there are some people that are like maybe a little bit overly excited. They're like, yo, like they're talking about like a fourth race. They're talking about releasing like hybrids as its own race and stuff like that. That like, let's go. Like they're gonna do that. It's like if they do that, we're thinking like year 6, right? Like year 6 of the game being released, not year 1 or year 2. Like this is further down the line, after they've exhausted like the main units that they want for Zerg, Protoss, and Terran. Like after that, and after they most likely get into releasing like other units that are only in the books and only in the comics, after that, that's when they're probably going to be thinking about like hybrid units and maybe a fourth race. But again, that's many years later, and they're going to have to be successful long enough for that to kind of be the case as well. So there's an asterisk on that one, on their ability to bring to light and bring to the forefront some otherwise never before seen units as well, which I think will be really exciting. I mean, they spoke about how like if they were to go that route, they would have to hire like their own artists, and they have to make like specifically create like 2D models and 2D renditions first of what the unit would even look like, and like get that through Blizzard and make sure that they're okay with how things look, just because like it's going to be a unit that's never been seen before in the games, for example, and in the IP, and then from there trying to construct like a 3D version of it as well, and all that. Like it's going to be a bigger process creating something that hasn't been visually made before, that's only been released like in books and in like the lore of the game. In regards to other units, in regards to other like Terran units, Protoss units, like Zerg units, which is exciting for sure, but that's like years down the line. It's years down the line. Otherwise, again, we do really I do really suggest checking out the AMA yourselves. There's a lot there. There's a lot there, a lot that they get into. It's very in-depth for sure. And again, everything is subject to change. But I do wish them the best. I wish them the best. It's definitely something that I'm interested in getting in, depending on the price point for sure. Like that's going to be the biggest hurdle. But if it's relatively accessible, then I'd love to get into it ourselves. And if we enjoy it, then we might even make content around it. Maybe. Of course, it's another kind of like big obstacle to try to showcase miniatures games and stream miniatures games, but we'll see what the future entails. We shall see. Speaking of RSL, and speaking of Archon Studios partnering with RSL, Season 3, the group stage, did conclude. We will be covering the playoffs ourselves this week. It is going to be in a couple of days' time, but the group stage did wrap up. When in touching on what Kuro did mention about working with other content creators, most likely once the game is released, they're probably, or maybe even before that, they might even be, sending out some like test models to RSL.
The tweet from RSL announcing that Archon continues to support them. It does say, "Be right back, guys. I think we just got something delivered."
Ah, well, there you go. It might just be the Zeratul model. Like that might just be what they show off. But it would be really cool if they had some other test models of their other units as well. For sure. But when it comes to RSL, here we go. The group stage is now done, and we have some interesting results coming in. We have Group A. Group A, we had MaxPax, Zound, Solar, and Bunny. Coming into this group, I did expect to see MaxPax and Solar doing well and excelling, but Solar, he barely didn't make the cut. He did defeat Zound initially in their first series, but Zound actually won the rematch over Solar 2-1 to advance on in second place alongside MaxPax. So congratulations, MaxPax and Zound, who do make it through. Again, this was played a couple of days ago. They're the first two to make it through to Group A. In Group B, we had Classic, Trigger, Cure, and Creator. In my mind, I was thinking Classic and Cure, but once again, Cure barely didn't make the cuts. Cure did defeat Trigger initially in the first series, and then Trigger won in the rematch. We have a bit of a trend here, where the first player to lose eventually wins in that potential rematch. We saw that from Zound, and we see that here from Trigger as well. So double Protoss, Jesus. Double Protoss making it out of Group A, double Protoss out of Group B. That leads us into Group C. We have Hero, Shin, Byeon, and Geralt. Coming into this, I was assuming that Hero and Byeon would make it through. And this time it didn't happen again. This time Shin beat Byeon 2-0 initially, and he won in the rematch as well. So Shin, he was a little bit more dominant in his performance here against Byeon, and he will make it out alongside Hero. I wasn't really too certain how to play Shin, just because Shin has been very inactive. He's been very inactive as of late, so I was leaning towards Byeon over Shin, but Shin was able to actually look quite impressive. Didn't get to see the games ourselves, but very impressive play here by Shin, and congratulations to Hero. So far, the top seeds do make their way through. They breeze their way through, kind of as expected. Classic, MaxPax, and Hero. Group D, we finally have no Protoss making it through. We had Maru, Raynor, Ryung, and SOS. Coming in here, I would say that there was a bit of more of a skill gap. Like SOS has been still trying to find his footing. Likewise, Ryung is a TVT specialist, and I would have loved to have seen the series against Maru. And no surprises here, the only series that went to the ace match was Ryung versus Maru. Like again, I rate Ryung's TVT very highly, and I can see him beating Maru. Did take a map, but he's the only player to take a map off of Maru. Maru takes down Ryung, and then Maru 2-0s Raynor. And then Raynor was able to take down Ryung in that final series as well. So Maru and Raynor, they make it through. I'm really curious to see how Raynor played that TVZ. I know that Maru, how he played the TVZ and how Raynor approached it as well. I know that Maru has been, I would say, very one note when it comes to his TVZ. He's been very predictable with mech and with 8-Raxes. In the latest meta, in the latest patch, and in the new map pool, I would say that some of that play is weaker than it once was. So I'm really curious to see how he did approach Raynor, how he did bring him down 2-0. Really exciting stuff there. As that leads us into the overall standings, we have the playoffs. We have Hero versus Zound, we have Classic versus Raynor, Maru versus Shin, and MaxPax versus Trigger. We have 5 Protoss, 2 Zerg, and 1 Terran in the playoffs. Again, we were expecting to see a little bit more Terran representation with Byeon and Cure, but Byeon and Cure barely did not make it through those groups. So we have more of a Protoss heavy playoffs instead, with a little bit less Terran representation. Less Terran than Zerg actually in those playoffs. When it comes to the matches themselves, a lot of the PvPs can go either way. We do lean towards Hero and MaxPax, but I can see Trigger and Zound causing upsets 100%. So best of luck to Hero versus Zound and MaxPax versus Trigger. We then have Classic versus Raynor. I'm going to be favoring Classic in that series. Classic has some of the best PvZ in the world. Raynor is going to have a very tough ask for him there. Best of luck to Raynor. And we'll have Maru versus Shin. Once again, I'm really curious to see how Shin played against Byeon and how Maru played against Raynor. I might even have to check out those VODs before we cast the playoffs, because that is going to be a really interesting series. That's going to be playing tomorrow, by the way. Tomorrow is going to be those 4 matches. if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So those 4 initial matches will be in 24 hours time. We'll be casting it here on the channel. We'll be casting it, and really excited to see how Maru and Shin do compare against each other. I think the other matches are a little bit more one note, but Maru versus Shin is definitely going to be more of a question mark to me, just because I don't know how they played out their respective matches. So best of luck. Best of luck to our players, of course. They're going to be featuring their own custom map pool with Botanical, Evil Heart, and Magnetic North. Interesting that they have their own custom map pool. They're featuring some of the ladder maps, but also some other maps are mixed in as well. Love to see that Magnetic North is also a part of the map pool. Do appreciate it. And we'll see how Evil Heart and Botanical also compare. We shall see, but again, that's going to be RSL. That's going to be starting tomorrow, and we are going to be co-streaming the event here on the channel. That leads us into the 2025 RSL Offline Finals. Again, this is an event happening in December, and we knew that the highest placing players from the previous seasons are going to be invited, but it looks like they're going to have an online qualifier as well, which I was not expecting. Interesting. Wait, what? Signups for the last chance qualifiers taking place on day 1 of the Offline Finals are live. Wait, what? Am I missing something here? Hold on. Saturday, December 13th, 2025 year finals, last chance qualifier, single elimination, open to only RSL 2025 participants. Oh. Wait, hold on. Am I missing something? Is the last chance qualifiers, is the qualifier offline? Is that what they're saying?
Yes, I believe the qualifier is also offline. Because it specifically says that travel and accommodation are not included, so you should only sign up if you can travel. So I assume it is offline.
I would assume so as well, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to try to qualify for the event that's the next day. Right? Like, so, yeah, that's kind of weird. It's a weird way of doing things. So they have their 4-player single elimination tournaments on the Sunday, but yeah, they're gonna have an offline qualifier. I guess that's why Rainer is there. If you remember, Rainer, he's in Korea, I believe. He traveled to Korea, and he did say that he was traveling for something that hasn't been announced yet. It's possible that he was tipped off ahead of time to go to Korea, to be in Korea, to play in these offline qualifiers, to be able to be a part of the events. There's a very high chance that that's what he was talking about, because we haven't heard anything else, right? Like when Rainer went, and again, he left a really cryptic message. He was like, hey, like there's something happening in Korea. I'm gonna be there, like, you know, that yet to be announced. I guess this is it, because we haven't heard anything else when it comes to winning an offline event in Korea, right? So I guess that's why Rainer's in Korea. Yeah, it's also a bit of a shame, because it also means obviously it's going to be limiting for any Europeans that want to be a part of this. There's a very high chance that a Korean makes it through, or Rainer. Again, if Rainer doesn't win the event itself and doesn't qualify through season 3, I believe he should be available to compete in the qualifier as well. Haven't heard if oh, it looks like there was an issue with Discord. I haven't heard if Clem is there. That I do not know yet. But I can inquire. We can figure that out. But if he's in Korea, then this might be the reason for it as well. Is to take place and be a part of RSL. Unless there's another event that hasn't been announced yet. True. It's possible that maybe Rainer wasn't talking about this, and maybe there's another yet to be announced, like, December Korean event. So I guess time will tell. Time will tell. Otherwise, with that, we're going to be heading over to the BGH off-season S-tier tournaments. Okay, is this Big Game Hunters, I guess? Yeah. So Big Game Hunters off-season tournaments, interesting. So Big Game Hunters, they've been hosting their own open cups and their own kind of like isolated tournaments, their own league, if you will. And looks like they are going to be running a bit of an off-season tournament here as well. We did have a bit of a smaller bracket here, but always great to see No Money. Like No Money, still playing, still competing. Much love to No Money. Inexorable as well. Inexorable does take down Nehead, does take down No Money 3-1. GG, well played here to Inexorable, as does claim the win. Does take down his opponents. in the BG, in the Big Game Hunters tournaments. And meanwhile, that leads us into our amateur events here. The Amateur League weeklies, as always. We have the Initiate Weekly. Once again, this is a weekly tournament for restricted leagues. So this initially is for Bronze to Platinum. So those between leagues of Bronze to Platinum are competing. And here we have Dollar Tree Dipper. Hello. We are actually seen him in some. I think. Didn't he join the Discord? Maybe. But I think he's been around. But Dollar Tree Dipper, he does take down Coral Viper 2-0. He takes down Jackals 2-0 and takes down Jackals 3-0 in the finals. Ooh, strong showing here from Dollar Tree. Very impressive. That leads us into the Veteran Weekly. This is for those that are between the leagues of Diamond 3 and Diamond 2. Here we had Lauren, Jill, Mako, Revo, and Sugarcoat the second. Here we had and Bobson. I didn't notice. Bobson, he got knocked out early by Jill, but does win in the rematch 3-0 over the opposing Protoss player. So nice comeback there from Bobson. Does take the win in the Initiate League. We then have the Prestige tournaments for those between the leagues of Diamond 1 and Masters 2. This is one of the more busy, the more populated. There we go. One of the more populated brackets. Typically, when it comes to these tournaments, we have Matrix, we have Zigger, we have Arez, Steez, Set, Medic Jr. Oh, speaking of Medic Jr., does go on a tear here, takes down Set, does fall to Hittich, but does actually have a bit of a comeback in that lower bracket, all the way from the bottom, takes down Matrix, takes down Set, takes down Heralot, does fall in the finals in the rematch against Hittich, though. Hittich does win 3-0, big win there for Hittich, congratulations, does come out on top. Meanwhile, that leads us into the Elite tournaments, and once again a walkover. Bit of a feels bad man, but Nick Rat, he shows up, the only player to be a part of this, and does get the default win. If you're curious as to why there aren't really many players in the Elite version, these tournaments don't have a prize pool. They only provide points into an end of season event that does have some prize money, so you have to invest quite a bit of time, of your own effort, to earn points to be a part of that event. And a lot of pro players don't really feel like it's worth it. So there's not really many active pros that do compete in this, which is a bit of a shame. But Negrat, he's going to get points to get into that end of season finals. So GG well played, which again does have prize money. That leads us into our monthly tournaments, into Masters 1 Open number 98. This is a monthly tournament for those that are below the MMR ranges of 4.7k MMR. That's around Masters 2, around M2. And here we did have DeWalt. DeWalt takes down Damachio 2-1, takes down Borel, takes down Roselia, and takes down Roselia once again in the grand finals. It was great to see some newer faces. For example, the Terran player from Guatemala, it was his first time competing. We've seen him plenty of times in Sentimiento Latino, in other Latin American tournaments, but great to see him taking part here as well. Did come in third place. And likewise, I believe Coral Viper, I think this is his first MSO. He might have played in Tuna Cup, for example. I think he's played in Tuna Cup.
Yes,
but I believe this was his first.
Tuna only before.
Yeah. But this is his first time competing in MSO. Does go down to Hobo Bobo in the first round. But again, great to see some newer faces in our tournaments, as always. GG all played. Congratulations to DeWalt for coming out on top, for winning the event. That leads us into the Coach's Corner 2v2 special. Juanito did organize this event. This might have been sponsored by the Ladder Legends. I believe a lot of these players are coaches and a part of Ladder Legends. So that might be related, maybe.
Well, I mean,
apparently Rotterdam did stream the event.
Now that I think about it, I think there are two coaching organizations right now, and I'm not sure which one Special would be part of. I don't know if he's in Ladder Legends or the other one.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. But in this event, we did have Zardians and Deathmars. Interesting duo here, but Zardians and Deathmars, they do take down Lelix and Gunner 2-0. They take down Cygnus and Minizerg, and they take down Nihed and PSZ in the finals 3-0. A little bit surprised. I mean, I was going to say a little bit surprised when it comes to the turnouts, but as I mentioned, I believe this is limited to a certain group of players, not everyone. And Zardian and Deathmars, they are definitely the strongest duo here. They're one of the better 2v2 teams out there. I wouldn't say the best in the CIS region. Again, we have other duos with Shameless, other duos with Yang Yakov, with Milky Cow, with Wayne. I want to say the best duo in the CIS region is Shameless and GG Machine. Like they're very, very strong players. But alas, again, this was limited to coaches, it looks like. To the coaches corner. But congratulations to Zardiant and Defmars. And hopefully we get to see some more 2v2. Remember, the ladder for 2v2 was also updated. So we do have some fresh maps for 2v2. And hoping to see more of that in the future. Looking at you Thermal. I'm waiting for the return of the 2v2 League. But that leads us into the regional events.
So I did look it up, and apparently Special, Laser, and a few others have a website called SC2 Pros, which also has coaching.
Oh, there you go. I haven't seen as much advertising from them, I'll be honest, but interesting to see nonetheless. Cool. That leads us into the Cryptech Esports League number 1. This is a Latin American and Spanish only tournament, so Spanish speakers essentially are able to take part in this. This was hosted not too long ago, and we had quite a bit of a turnout here. We had Kamikaze from Brazil, we had Davito from Peru, we had Eon, we had Fairspitter, Galahad, Havertz, Wallace, Daryl, players that we are quite familiar with overall. And Kamikaze had a deep run, took down Daryl, took down Davo 2-0, took down Havertz 3-0 as well, and did fall in the grand finals to Eon. Eon, he had a good run himself, did fall to Davito in the first round, but he crawled his way back in from the lower brackets, was able to win the entire event 3-1 in the grand finals. Congratulations to Eon, and a shout out to Kamikaze for making it all the way to the finals. GG. GG, well played. Hope to see more of these events in the future. Again, we'll see if this is the first of many. It is number 1. Hopefully we get more of these in the future, whether it's a weekly, whether it's a monthly. Currently it's listed as a monthly on Wikipedia. We'll see if that continues to be the case. We shall see. That leads us into the EBG Zerg Cup number 1. Interesting. A pretty big event, to be honest. It is a qualifier, bear that in mind, from the CIS region, but we had a lot of players taking place here. We had a massive group stage initially, which I was not expecting. So we do have a massive group stage, and it looks like only one player from each group made it through. That is a crazy format. What the hell? What? How long was this event? For a qualifier, might I add. So yeah, and who seeded the event? That's the better question, actually. For Group A to have Shameless, GG Machine, Replicant, and Wayne. Wait. Hold on. And Tiger? Like, the Group A is heavily stacked. Like, what the hell? No shame to, like, Ultramarine, Karma Prime, F2 Click. Those are the only notables, really, I would say. Yeah, only those 3 players. But, yeah, the seeding was crazy here. Basically, they stacked all the pro players into Group A, essentially. Like, we have Ultramarine and Karma Prime, who are more up-and-comers, more amateur players. Like, I think they're Masters low GM. So it's kind of crazy that they stacked up Group A the way that they did. Yeah, that's kind of insane. I guess they just randomized the groups, but this is actually crazy. As I would say that all 4 players, so all 5 players in Group A, they are the best players in the tournament, 100%. In this qualifier, 100%. They're the best. Maybe you can make an argument for Tiger and Ultramarine, and Tiger and Karma Prime, but even then, I still do favor all of the players in Group A. So heavily stacked group. Shameless comes out on top, and of course, Shameless qualifies. Shout out to Karma Prime for taking a map. Big shout out to Karma Prime. But Shameless does step away as the first player, the first player to qualify alongside Ultramarine. But I want to say the big reason for that is the seeding. Like GG Machine, Replicant, Wayne, Tiger, I can see any of them making it out instead of Ultramarine if they'd only ended up in his group or in any other group, really. So yeah, crazy seeding is what I will say. And again, congratulations to Shameless and Ultramarine, and best of luck to the other players, as there are going to be more qualifiers coming up. There's going to be a 2nd and a 3rd qualifier as well. And again, there's a very high chance that some of these other players do make it through. Speaking about GG Machine, Replicant, Wayne, and other players in the region as well. So GG all played. That leads us into the Legacy Weekly Japan. That is a weekly open tournament in the Japanese region. Where is my tapioca? Oh, they go down early, actually. Okay, so Tapioca actually goes down to Vaishravanya 2-0 in the semifinals, and Vaishravanya does win the entire event. Vaishravanya is a very old school player, has been around for a long time, has won many of these, but in recent times, I feel like we've had some of these younger players like Shirayuki, like Tapioca, kind of surpass Vaishravanya. So this is a big, this is a big return to form. Big return to form for our Zurich player here. Congratulations to Vaishravanya. Congratulations. Wins after a long time. GG. GG well played. Meanwhile, we do have the Return to Server Cup. As we mentioned before, this is a tournament, and I think it might even be misspelled, because this is a tournament celebrating the return of the Chinese server.
I'm telling you, this name is a pun. I'm sure of it. This is a pun on the line that the Immortal says. When you build an Immortal, the first thing it says is "I return to serve." So you know, because the Immortal, because the server was dead, but it's not dead, so it's Immortal.
It might be a reference, but it is celebrating the return of the Chinese server. It's fine. We previously, I believe, we spoke about the round robin group stage, which already wrapped up, and now we have confirmation of the playoffs. The playoffs did conclude, and we did have our champion. Quickly checking the translation. Let's have a look here. Xiaoba. Yeah, Xiaoba. Hold on. Sorry. Xiaoba. Xiaoba does win 3-1 in the finals. Congratulations. Once again, as a reminder, this is more of an amateur tournament. MMR restricted specifically for amateur players, but again, is meant to celebrate the return of the Chinese server. So congratulations to Xiaoba for winning the event. Speaking of Chinese events, we do have the weekly Open Chinese Cup, the Sunrise Cup. Sunrise Cup number 222. Here, oh, interesting. We're missing some of our notables. We're missing Nanami Chiaki. We're missing, I think that's Millennium Fox, I believe. Yep, Millennium Fox. We're missing Nanyu, though. There's no Nanyu or Nanami Chiaki, so we're missing some of the other key players, which means Young Zest had a very clean run here to the finals, was able to beat Millennium Fox 2-0. He won in the forfeit match in the semifinals, and in the grand finals, he off-raced. Again, Young Zest is the clear favorite without other competitors like Nanami Chiaki, like Nanyu, like these other big Protoss, Zerg, or Terran players did decide to off-race in the finals against Novico. And GG does win 3-2, went all the way to the ace match, of course, but does barely win in the end. Young Zest having fun off-racing. Does have fun off-racing in the finals. Meanwhile, I believe we finally have the conclusion of the round robin stage. No, sorry, we did that last time. We have the beginning of the playoffs of the Elpis Team League. This is a Chinese team league. This is Code A, the Code A for the Chinese team league. We do have the first round concluding the quarterfinals, and Protoss the Best takes down Rookie Warpgate 5-4. Ivy took down Pioneer. Looks like this is an WTL format. Yeah, it's WTL format. The way this works here is that if you do drop a map, then you are eliminated. If you are tied 1-1, you knock each other out. If it's a 2-0, you stay on. So Ivy 2-0'd Pioneer, stayed on. Then we saw the tied 1-1 score, so they knock each other out. That was Ivy versus... Tsukino. Oh, that's Tsukino. There you go. So they knock each other out. Then we had Alka takes down his opponent 2-0. Then we see the reverse occur. Trap did get knocked out. We had the revival match, and in the end, Protoss the Best barely does take the win, 5-4. GG. GG, well played. As it went all the way to the ace match, to that final revive match. Again, this is the same format as WTL. And in the semis is going to be Starlight Twinkle Team 2 versus Protoss the Best. I do lean towards the Starlight Twinkle team, for sure. I do lean towards them as being the favorites for the entire league, but best of luck to the remaining teams. That is going to be played out in a couple of days' time. We will play that in a couple of days. That leads us into the Code S edition, into the Elpis Team League Code S. Here we go. We got the big dogs facing off PCEC against Kauda. Oh my god. And is that Nanyu? Jesus, calm down. And, oh, one momento here. Yep, Nanyu. Nanyu does all kill Kauda. Nanyu takes down Winter 2-0, takes down Kin 2-0, takes down Turn, and takes down Ghost as well. Crazy result. Again, WTL all kill format. and Nanyu wins it all. Again, if you remember, this is a player that we typically see excel in the Sunrise Cup, but Nanyu wasn't there this week for Sunrise Cup, was focusing on all killing Kauda. GG all played. So we have PCEC up against Elpis in the next round in a couple of days' time, and up against Starlight Twinkle in the grand finals. And what's crazy is that PCEC, they haven't even really revealed the rest of their roster, the rest of their team in those playoffs. I still do lean towards Starlight Twinkle. They have a very powerful roster with Rewhite, Young Zest, Jolua, and Triple H. They have a very, very strong roster. When it comes to Elpis, their team is solid as well. They've got Lemon, they've got Oriana, they've got SCV. I will say that Elpis, I think they have the best player in the playoffs in Lemon. I would say that Lemon is stronger than any other player in the playoffs, but I was going to say it's a team league. He can't do it himself. In this format, he can. in this format, he could. Technically, we're in an all-kill format, so if Lemon pops off, he could win it all for his team. We'll see if he can carry. We'll see if he can carry Esther Lemon. Best of luck. Best of luck to all the players involved. Bearing in mind that PCEC does have Mixu as well, so Mixu's also kind of in their pocket to be fielded. So best of luck. That leads us into the OSC Masters Cup 150 group stage. Group B, again, this is an event that is sponsored by Dave Testa, organized and run by Dave Testa as well. So it's all featured on his channel. Group B did conclude. We had Björn, Percival, Christiana, Rebellion, and Sham. And I think we all expected Sham to do a little bit better here, but Sham did struggle, did take down Rebellion, but only a single map was taken. Instead, we have all the others advancing on instead. Strong showing there by Björn, Percival, and Christiana. GG all played. When it comes to Group C, that should be played out next week, potentially, depending on who's available. We have Creator, Honmono, Nickrak, Sebestis, and Young Yakov. Here we're leaning towards Creator, Nickrak, and Young Yakov. Best of luck to Sebestis, but it's going to be a tough ask there for Sebestis and Honmono. Best of luck in Group C. Best of luck. Yeah, I see Yaku in the chat. Yes, Ender, he's back. I say he's back. We went over it last week, but this is Ender's first time competing in years. Like, Ender, he has been streaming, that is true, but he hasn't actually played in a tournament in a very long time. So this event does mark the return of Ender. Hopefully the first of many. Like, he did surprisingly well here. Like, we went over it last time, but Ender, he beat Baby Marine. He beat the Baby Marine, pappy. Oh my god. So Ender, he's looking pretty good, and hopefully we see more of him. Hopefully more of him in the future. But again, that's all covered over on Dave Testa's channel. That leads us into the online weeklies. That leads us into Pixar Cup. Again, unfortunately, we were covering this event this morning, but we weren't able to finish the events. Our internet did go down in the quarterfinals.
Hold on. This is actually last week's Pixar Cup, because if you remember, it was on Friday.
Oh, true. Sorry, I was discussing 58. But coming into 57, as was mentioned, this was on the Friday, not during the week, as we were waiting for Pig to return from Canada. But he did return on Thursday, I believe, so he was ready for this. Here we had Clem. Clem takes down Nickrak 2-0, takes down Percival 3-0, and Clem takes down Solar in the grand finals. A strong showing here by Clem. Solar, he had a very impressive run himself. If you remember, Solar did take down MaxPax. He took down MaxPax 3-1. A very impressive result there by Solar. MaxPax was favored, but if you remember, MaxPax had a really surprising kind of approach to Solar. If you recall, MaxPax, he was hyper aggressive. He was very in the face of Solar. MaxPax, he wasn't really playing standard against Solar, and Solar was able to excel in that kind of environment. GG, well played. Congratulations to Clem. That leads us into the Sparkling Tuna Cup number 113, and this marked a momentous occasion for us. Again, we did just showcase Solar defeating MaxPax, and hey, Solar, he has been looking very in form as of late. Takes down Young Yakov, takes down Nightmare, and he 3-0s Classic in the grand finals. Very impressive play there by Solar. I should also emphasize that Solar's not playing macro, he's not playing standard. Solar, he's being very aggressive in the mid game. We're seeing a lot of all-ins. A lot of 3-base all-ins, a lot of 3-base play out of Solar, a lot of 4-bases just for Larva, and just hyper-aggression out of our Zerg player. Classic has the best late-game PvZ in the world. He never got there. He never got to late game, not against Solar. So a very short series. in those finals. Shout out to Classic. Classic, it is his first time playing. In a Sparkling Tuna Cup, so really cool to see Classic making his debut after a long time. Does finish in second place, unfortunately, but hopefully this marks the beginning of maybe more Classic presence and more Classic participation in the Tuna Cup. Let's go. Let us go. Solo's now the number 2 Zerg on Illegal says a lot of things. That is true. But Solo, because of his activity and because of his competition and how active he's been, I wouldn't be surprised if Solo is in every single one of these tournaments. But Solo has been finding a lot of success, specifically in Zerg versus Protoss. And as we mentioned, both against Max Packs and against Classic here, he's been very aggressive. He avoids the late game. He avoids that kind of max out scenario, and he's been ending the game earlier instead. That leads us into the Wardy TV Monday number 61. Speaking of ZVP, hey, there you go. Solar, he takes down Ryung initially, takes down Goblin, takes down Creator, and takes down Hero 3-0. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover this event, so I could only speculate as to what occurred here. But I would imagine that the trend continues with shorter games here for Solar. I would add to that, though, that Hero typically is also a very mid-game player. So for Solar to defeat Hero in the mid-game, I feel like that is more impressive than Solar beating Classic or Max Packs. Right, where Classic and Max Packs, they're more known for their kind of like longer and later game scenarios and situations where they would deny that. For Solar to beat Hero here, I feel like is more impressive and speaks more on Solar's EVP. So GG. GG well played. Shout out to Hero. Hero did take down, Jesus, he had a crazy run himself. He 2-0'd a Laser, he 2-0'd Bjorn, he 2-1 Raynor to make it to the finals, and then of course we had Solar claiming those finals 3-0. Max Pax also knocked down early on in the tournament, and there's no Clem. Interesting, there's no Clem in this Wardy TV Monday. No Clem. That leads us into the Monday Night Weekly number 30. Oh boy. Someone earlier did speculate whether or not Clem was in Korea. If Clem is playing in Monday Night Weeklies, I don't think he's in Korea. Like that's like that is a D-Gen tournament. So I'm not so sure if that's the case, but I have no confirmation, or maybe he went to Korea a little bit later in the week. Is possible. For now, Clem, he takes down Mute 2-1, takes down Shameless, Mute to take a map. Let's go. Bjorn knocks down Clem in the upper bracket semifinals. Bjorn in that PVT does take down Clem, takes down Max Pax 2-1 as well. Very impressive. Clem actually was eliminated by Max Pax in the best of 1 in that lower bracket, but then Max Pax wins in the rematch. He does win 3-1 in the best of 5 and then 2-0 in the best of 3 reset match. So GG well played, Max Pax. He does win the event in the end, but Bjorn had a very impressive performance here, defeating Clem and Max Pax initially as well, also showcasing his TVP. Very impressive. GG. GG will play. That leads us into the Pixar Cup number 58. This was this morning's tournament. As I mentioned before, we were covering this event, but we weren't able to conclude the event as the incident did go down. We should be listed there. For some reason, we're not. SMH my head. When it comes to the streams. But alas, Clem, he takes down Milky Cow, takes down Percival. We actually, our internet disconnected in the middle of Percival versus Bjorn. So a bit of a feels bad man went down in the ace match. But Clem takes down Percival, and Clem takes down Hero 3-2 in the grand finals. Went all the way to the ace match. GG well played. GG well played here to Clem, as it does claim his win over Hero. And that leads us into the Wardy TV Korean Royale Season 4. This event has been running for quite some time, and it's still a very long group stage. It is round robin groups, and fun fact, it is going to be continuing today, tomorrow, later on. Hold on. Let us double check. At a later date, in 2 days' time, apparently. Okay, so in 2 days' time should be when this event continues. 3 days time even, so it's gonna take a while. It's an event that's been ongoing. It's a little bit messy here, but the group stage will eventually conclude. And when it comes to the event itself here, we do have Solar at the top of his standings, at the top of his group. We have Zan, Raynor, Nightmare, Cure, Percival, and Ryung. I did hear there was a surprising results. Percival, that's it. So yesterday, Percival did defeat Raynor 2-1. I remember that was a big upset that people were hyped about. So really impressive play there by Percival, taking down Raynor. Zan defeated Raynor as well. Raynor did defeat Nightmare, but again, it's been a shaky group here for Raynor, and by no means is he confirmed to make it through the group stage. Coming into this event, I lean towards Solar, Raynor, and Cure, but Down has been popping off. Nightmare is doing well for himself. Kira's been struggling. Percival and Ryung a little bit more further down. Raynor's been struggling. So yeah, this group can still end almost any way, and there's still 3 more matches to go. 3 more solid matches. When it comes to Group B, we have Hero, Creator, Classic, Shin, Rogue, Beyond, and Gumiho. Gumiho has been very inactive, so we expected Gumiho to struggle in this group. We were expecting some greater results from Classic, but he has yet to drop a series. There's still so many more matches to go, so many more matches to come. Classic barely has played any of his games. Hero still has a lot of matches missing as well, so there's still a lot to kind of get through here. I was expecting Hero, Classic, and Beyond to excel, but it's still a very stacked group. Very, very stacked. Best of luck to all the players, of course, as this will lead into the playoffs scheduled to begin in a week and a week's time. Playoffs should be in a week, and again, in 3 days, we should have the remainder of this group. Oh boy. So GG all played. Best of luck to all the other competitors here in the Wardy TV Korean Royale. When it comes to our coverage, we should be casting the RSL, the Revival StarCraft League. That'll be tomorrow, and it'll be for the rest of the week, the rest of the entire week. I did mention previously that we weren't able to finish Pigstar Cup, so we're most likely going to get the replays and have a replay cast at a later date. Yet to be confirmed. We still have to get the replays themselves. So most likely over the weekend or one of these days, we'll be getting our hands on those replays. Speaking of replays, Wardy TV Monday number 61, we're also going to be covering that via replays tomorrow as well. So we're going to be catching up on some of these weekly cups, and again, RSL for the next 4 days time. 4 days of RSL, and Kung Fu Cup is also going to be next week. We already kind of discussed the results a little bit here, but we have the replays, we have those matches, and we'll be going over them starting November 24th. November 24th, moving forward. So GG. GG well played. Again, a bit of a leaner week when it comes to tournament results, but there was a lot to discuss when it comes to the EWC event, the EWC docu-series, when it comes to the StarCraft AMA for the miniatures game. Again, really exciting, really ambitious, but as I mentioned, I do have my concerns about the longevity and about the release and about the miniatures game itself. I do hope they do well. I do hope they're able to be successful, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all to kind of break into the miniature scene, to break into the wargaming scene. It's going to be a tough ask. I do think they're going to be heavily reliant on Blizzard promoting the game, on Blizzard pushing, promoting, and supporting the game itself, specifically marketing-wise. If they fail to do so, then the game is going to struggle. So again, Blizzard, they do have a lot of marketing behind them. They do have a lot of resources behind them, Microsoft, Blizzard specifically. So I do wish them the best. I do hope they're able to bring it to the forefront, to bring it to people's attention, and potentially making it a successful miniatures game. Best of luck. Best of luck to all those involved. When it comes to the rest of the week, again, exclamation mark sign up list in the chat. We do have a sign up list available here, and this week we do have the return of SC Evo. Oh my god, my apologies, I missed this, but StarCraft Evolution is going to be returning in a couple of days' time. I believe they're still working on their own. Patch. They're still working on their own updates. So we'll see how the league does pan out, but really cool to see the return of the weeklies or the bi-weeklies. Likewise, we have the Wardy TV Monday night weeklies, and all the other open cups as well that we're going to be involved in, that we're going to be a part of. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Very quickly as well, if you want to support us, you can do so via Patreon, exclamation mark Patreon in the chat. We actually just got a couple of new patrons earlier today, so thank you so much to all the support that we're getting. Again, all the Patreons, all the money that we make there goes towards our tournaments. As you can see, we do host 3 events on a regular basis. We have the Sparkling Tunic Cup, we have Master Sworn Open, and Sea Duckling Open as well. It's all funded via Patreon, and you can help us grow the events via Patreon as well, to help us have monthly finals be a part of the regular circuit in 2026. So you can help us out. Very quickly, when it comes to Tunic Cup this week, there is going to be no open Tunic Cup this upcoming week. Instead, we're going to have some seeding matches in preparation for the November finals. November finals are going to be on the 30th of November, the very final day of November. That's going to be when our finals take place. And again, next week, we're going to have some specific qualifying matches to be a part of that, because we have a 3-way tie. We have a 3-way tie for the November finals, and we're going to be breaking that tie this upcoming week. Let's go. Let us go. So again, that should be scheduled for the 25th, or the 25th of November on Tuesday. That should be when that is organized. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up. Welcome to the new Patreons. Yes, yes, exactly. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I do highly recommend checking out the beginning of the broadcast when we were discussing the Esports World Cup docu-series and discussing the Miniatures AMA, and of course all the other news of the week. When it comes to next week's broadcast outside of the Open Cups, we are going to be discussing the new Cyril video. Cyril, he did release an analysis video of his classic series. I am very interested in hearing it. Very interested in hearing his perspective. So we'll be going over that soon. Again, next week. Let's go. Otherwise, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the replay cast of the Woody TV Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow for the beginning of the playoffs of the RSL. See you then. Ciao, papi, ciao. See you then.